There are some names in military history that just stick. They bring up these images of pure daring, skill, and, I don't know, a certain kind of mystique. The Flying Tigers is definitely one of those names. But this story, it's about way more than just a cool name and some awesome nose art. It's about a legacy of innovation and pure grit that's still making waves today. Okay, let's get into it. All right, take a look at this. This jet is an A-10C Thunderbolt II. It's a modern, ground-pounding beast of a plane. But look at the nose art, those iconic shark teeth. That design is from 1941, made famous in the skies over halfway across the world. So what gives? Why is this 21st century jet rocking war paint from World War II? To figure that out, we're going to follow the trail of this legendary symbol. We'll start with the legend of the shark itself, meet the original Flying Tigers, see how their torch was passed on, uncover the incredible story of the air condos, and then tie it all together to see how their legacy lives on. All right, so first up, we've got to rewind the clock way back to a time before the United States was even officially in the Second World War. So get this, the very first Flying Tigers, they weren't an official part of the U.S. military. They were the American Volunteer Group, the AVG. You can think of them as military contractors, or, well, basically mercenaries. They were pilots from the Army, Navy, and Marines who volunteered to secretly go fight for China against the Japanese invasion, all before Pearl Harbor ever happened. And this is the plane that made them legends, the Curtiss P-40 Warhawk. It was right on the nose of these fighters that the pilots painted those incredible shark teeth. That look became their calling card, a symbol of fear for their enemies and a symbol of hope for everyone else. Now, you gotta remember, flying over hostile, unfamiliar territory, if you got shot down, you were in serious trouble. So to survive, these pilots carried something called a blood chit. It was literally sewn onto their jackets, and it had a message in different local languages that said something like, "Hey, this guy's a friend, help him and you'll get a reward." It was a lifeline, pure and simple. But, the whole volunteer setup couldn't last forever. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, America was officially in the war, and everything had to change. And this switchover, it was fast, and really symbolic. On July 4th, 1942, the volunteer group, the AVG, was officially disbanded. On the exact same day, the U.S. Army Air Forces officially activated the 23rd Fighter Group. This was a direct handover. The 23rd took on the AVG's pilots, their mission, and most importantly, they were given official permission to keep the Flying Tigers nickname and those famous shark teeth. And boy, did they live up to the name. The new official Flying Tigers put up an absolutely staggering combat record. Just look at these numbers. We're talking more than 900 enemy aircraft destroyed, in the air and on the ground. Over 130,000 tons of enemy shipping sunk, and 32 pilots became aces. Their effectiveness was just off the charts. And that spirit of innovation from the AVG, it was still there, big time. They were developing new tactics for fighter bombers and eventually upgraded from the P-40 to the legendary P-51 Mustang. I mean, that was a total game changer, giving them way more power and range. Okay, but here's where the story gets another fascinating twist. That spirit of innovation wasn't just with the 23rd Group. Something else, something totally new and unconventional, was brewing in the same part of the world. So here was the challenge. You've got these elite Allied troops, called the Chindits, and they're operating deep, and I mean deep, behind enemy lines in the jungles of Burma. How on earth do you get them supplies? How do you rescue them when they're hurt? Your standard Air Force just wasn't built for that kind of problem. The top boss of the Army Air Forces, General Hap Arnold, knew a normal solution wouldn't cut it. He needed something radical. And his order for creating the unit to solve this problem says it all. He basically said, to hell with the paperwork, go out and fight. I mean, how awesome is that? It was all about getting the job done no matter what. So who do you get to lead a crazy, out-of-the-box mission like this? Well, and this is the key connection. You get veterans from the original Flying Tigers, guys like John Allison and Robert T. Smith. The same DNA, that same can-do, unconventional thinking. It was baked right into this new unit, the 1st Air Commando. And this group was different. This wasn't just a bunch of fighter planes. They were a self-contained air force. They were using these huge transport planes to literally snatch gliders full of troops and supplies right off the ground and drop them deep in the jungle. Needed to bomb a target to help the guys on the ground? No problem. They had their own bombers, like these B-25s, right there with them. And you better believe they had their own fighter cover, P-51s, to protect the whole operation. It was like a miniature, all-in-one Air Force designed for one impossible mission. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. And what they pulled off was, frankly, historic. We're talking about a whole list of firsts. The first aerial invasion behind enemy lines, the first air unit ever designed from scratch just to support a ground force. And get this, the first use of helicopters in combat for rescue missions. I mean, come on. They were literally writing the playbook for modern special operations. Okay, so you see these two incredible stories, right? You've got the direct family line of the 23rd Fighter Group, and you have this wild, innovative spirit of the Air Commandos, and both trace their roots right back to the AVG. So let's bring it all home to today. Now, after the war, the 23rd Group's story gets a little complicated. The unit was turned on, turned off, it moved around, it did all sorts of different jobs over the years. But the key thing to remember is that official line, that heritage from 1942, was never, ever broken. And that brings us right back to the present. Today, the 23rd Fighter Group is alive and well at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. And what's their mission? Flying the A-10C Thunderbolt II, a plane built for one thing, close air support, protecting the troops on the ground. Sound familiar? It's the spirit of the Flying Tigers and the Air Commandos all rolled into one. So let's circle all the way back to the beginning. Why the shark teeth on that modern jet? Because the 23rd Fighter Group is the Flying Tigers. They are the direct official heirs to that incredible lineage. They're the only ones in the entire U.S. Air Force who have earned the right to wear that war paint. And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. This whole story isn't just about history or cool nose art. It's a legacy of thinking differently, of breaking the rules to get the job done. So you have to wonder, right? How does remembering a story like this, a story that started with mercenaries and led to commandos, continue to inspire and shape how a modern military finds answers to the impossible problems of today?